Is this on?
I'll start, and what we'll do is we'll tell each of our stories and then we'll pass down a microphone, and then we might need to pick somebody from the audience to feed the microphone to them for questions. So, without further ado, guys, we will start this panel as we are, like I say, running out of time. So, my name is Simpa Carter. I am the founder and organizer, I suppose, of this event, the founder of Durham City Cannabis Club. I have used cannabis most of my life. In fact, over half of my life I have consumed it every day, basically. The other times that I haven't is because of the lack of access. This hasn't been to the detriment of my existence, far from it. It has made me a better person. Cannabis has metacognitive properties, which means you start to think about how you think and why you think. This caused me to challenge many of the assumptions that I had about my reality and why cannabis was illegal, and led me to become an activist.
Hi, my name's Callie Blackwell, and I'm the mother of a boy who was given 3 days to live. He had 2 forms of cancer, 4 failed bone marrow transplants, and yeah, basically gave us 3 days to live. I gave him cannabis and he didn't die. And since then, I have become an activist because I believe that there's only so much we can do, so the best thing we can do is help the people that need the help right now. And so that's what I do. I don't care about the law, I just help people who need my help. And whatever will be above me with the fight politically that goes on, goes on. I'm grassroots, you know, if you need any help, I'll help you. And that's why I fight for it, because I see it work, and I know it works. And it's very tiring trying to help people when you're fighting up against such a stiff system, especially such a corrupt system. So being an activist is, yeah, you do literally give up your entire life for cannabis because it means that much to you, because it's worked.
Thank you. And first of all, I would like to say my thank you to Simpa for all the hard work, and it's amazing, and the talent to get this together. Thank you, Simpa. And I appreciate the activists of the past, and I sometimes think people don't realise that there were people before them who did things. And walking around here, and was very moving, because I remembered the first picnics, the Smoky Bears picnic. It was the guy from Bedford, Tony Quinn, who decided to go in the woods with people from Bedford and never smoking. So it was the first one. And after the legalised pot rally in '67, which I attended, and we were told to dress up in fancy gear. And I arrived and had a Zapata moustache, a kaftan, with a badge saying no search without warrant. And I had a garland of leaves and flowers in my hair. So when I walked out of my flat in West Kensington, all the kids on the street, because there were kids then on the streets, were shouting, "Hello Jesus, hello Julius Caesar." And I was so embarrassed. Then I went on the tube train, just a few stops, and people were staring at me. So I got out and I arrived at Hyde Park, and everyone was dressed in lovely clothes. There was Eric Clapton on a hand-painted jacket, and we all, of course we didn't smoke dope, and you couldn't play music in the pub, but there were speeches. And the next day I was on the back page of The Guardian, all the beautiful people. So it's my image, and I was on Panorama Hippies, which was very enlightened. People thought people were coming back from India, and there was Hari Om, which Galen Ginsberg did, and I became a cannabis activist, but by default, because a lot of the things I was doing upset the police. So I started selling the Grower's Guide in the Portobello Road, the British Grower's Guide and psilocybin book, and I had the nerve to put it in the window because I was suddenly bugged the shop with plainclothes police, and then I heard a click in a jacket, and I said, "That's a policeman." And he put the guy that had been following from the pub out, who had 7 grams in his pocket, I didn't know, and he said, "I'm taking you off and doing you for allowing the premises." So suddenly I was up, and I could see at the police station all the Rastafarians and young black people being stopped and searched and brought into the police station. And I said, "There are going to be riots in this country," and the policeman said, "No, there are no riots there." But before my case could come up, there were the riots in Brixton, Toxteth, and they were going up in flames, mainly because of raids on premises for cannabis, which the West Indians or the Afro-Caribbean community, that started the Brixton riot and the original one there. So suddenly I was involved in court cases. And as the courts were full of rioters, so I couldn't get in charge. I had to have a 4-week period to be around 24 hours, another 4-week period. And then I was up at the Old Bailey, the highest court in the land, on a verbal. The police say I'm supposed to say in front of them, for God's sake, sir, or lose the cannabis, the law are here. And I didn't understand that's called a verbal. And then I had a case where they came in to take my cigarette papers, and it was Notting Hill Drug Squad staged the first last week. So I was involved in another big case of selling items that may be used for, believing it is to be used for unlawful circumstances. And lucky everything could only be done for Class B drug is cannabis, and the cigarette papers. And I ended up being sentenced to 3 months for selling cigarette papers. So I became a sort of backstreet hero in my motorcycle magazines, the Weekly Purge, and the MP came to put money in my defence fund, the Conservative MP. And it was a weird period, and I had a big benefit for my expenses at the LSC. That's a nice thing about doing an activist thing called the Rolling Paper Review. And I thank Benjamin Zephaniah, Mark Thomas and Arthur Smith who came and performed for me. And at that same week when I had to go to Knightsbridge Crown Court, Margaret Thatcher was toppled, who brought the law in with David Mellor. And they said on radio, I heard David Mellor, now we're after you nasty paraphernalia shops. So once I won my appeal in the Knightsbridge Crown Court on ineluctable doubt, and that was good enough. And the rolling paper verdict was quashed. And I was much loved by the Afro-Caribbean community. And to pay homage because I had a Rasta culture shop. And when I was very down with all this, because I live in the country and got a wife and children, I'd hear Bob Marley singing, don't worry about a thing, everything's going to be all right. So I went afterwards to Jamaica to pay homage to my brothers and sisters there. But I see myself as a social justice activist. I've staged a vigil outside Wormwood Scrubs prison, where I painted all the signs and called in the underground press for the arrest of the Home Secretary. And I had a theatre of fact event at the Roundhouse. I blocked the entrance to the Old Bailey with a lot of hippie girls during the Oz trial, when my friends got sentenced to 15 months imprisonment for obscenity charges. So I believe in freedom. And I came to London not knowing about cannabis, and I came with very prudish and puritanical ideas. But I think I published Europe's first cannabis magazine, 77 to 82, and that caused me a lot of problem. When Sun rang me up on a Sunday and said there's an MP who wants you to be prosecuted for inciting people to break the law. And all I said in that first homegrown, you put your finger in the ground 6 inches and you plant a seed. And that was incitement. So might be I attracted the publicity, but I'm glad I did it. And then I had the honour recently, and I got a few leaflets of standing for the Mayor of London, but I liked on all the ballot papers was the cannabis logo, the leaf, and that you could talk about cannabis openly to Londoners was helping remove the stigma. And personally, I'm more the anarchist thing, and I'd like to see people grow their own. Though I must admit, because I watched how GW came about, and at one time, 12, 14 years ago, I thought, oh well, I'll put some money, so I have shares in GW, and for about 10 years they were worth nothing. I'd lost a few £1,000s, but nowadays they're doing very well. So and I met Dr. Christopher Guy at a Cannabis conference with Linda Smith Institute. So it's a wonderful path. It's a path of knowledge, of history, and of medical science now at long last. The West and its methodology has no idea how to cure the whole person. They have things for secular distances. And thank you for listening. And I'll pass it on to Trev.
Hello, I'm Trev Coleman. I've got involved with this a few years ago after being branded a junkie for my use of cannabis as pain relief, only to sit one day and type in a phrase, "Why is cannabis illegal?" to have a whole new world open up to us. Everything I've learned about the socioeconomics, geopolitics, history of prohibition, and the experience the life experience I've got, I can now equate what I saw of the war crime on the highway of death in Iraq with the greed of a THC cap. Prohibition at this point in history, it's not just a crime against humanity, it's a crime against all life on earth. And to be honest, this extinction rebellion that's taking place down London right now, very, very easily solved from our farmers' fields. All that's lacking is the political will.
Hi, my name is Mike Wise. I've been an activist my entire life. My father was a politician, so I grew up in a prohibitionist household. I always consumed cannabis from a young age, although I didn't know it was for medical reasons. In 2012, I got jailed and basically lost 2 years of the prime of my life from 2012 to 2014, whether I was incarcerated in a prison or in a state hospital of some sort, a psychiatric facility, because they wanted to say that I was incompetent to stand trial. So after that 2-year period finished, I moved to Colorado from Texas, where I was imprisoned, a much freer place. I got into cannabis activism more heavily because I was able to go to the Capitol and speak about issues like I did before in Texas, but now I could do it about cannabis. I'm a filmmaker. I got into, so naturally I made a film about cannabis, and then on that journey I learned about cannabis oil, and that's how I used that to cure my Crohn's disease. So that's why I'm here today. I was also a caregiver in Colorado. I've provided the oil to over 1,000 patients now worldwide.
Thank you very much. Yeah, this is our panelist. Do we have any questions from the audience? Anything at all? It's a bit unusual. That means you have to listen to us. People talk some shite, frankly. Again, I've obviously told you why I'm here and what I'm doing. I think this is a perfect opportunity to do a few comments between us all about the future of cannabis. I think that's the best way to close this event, is to talk about where we see this going once we deal with this draconian and antiquated policy that is prohibition. As Trev Coleman succinctly put, it is from our farmers' fields that we will solve this problem. So on that note, Callie, would you like to give us some thoughts on the future of cannabis?
I think Jack Harris said it perfectly well, and I can't remember the quote word for word, but I'll paraphrase, is that the only thing that can save the world.
I don't know if hemp will save the world, but it's the only thing that can.
Yeah, it's, from medicines to up to plastics to energy to homes to just everything, and it's all control. It's all control, because this plant holds so much and it gives so much, and that's why it's being held and repressed for as long as they possibly can, so that they can be the ones to profit from it. They don't want it to be an open source, and of course the plant is open source. So the future of cannabis, I believe that it'll win, because I have a faith in humanity, and I have a faith that truth will prevail in the end. And it's going to get probably a lot worse before it gets better, but it will in the end. And so the future for cannabis is she will be the thing to save the world and all of that. I don't think I'll see it though, if I'm honest. I don't think I'll see it, but I know it's not about that, isn't it? It's about planting the seed of the tree that you know that you're never going to sit in the shade of. So, you know, this is not about. The fact that this man. I just want to say about how I didn't know half of your story, Lee, and so even this. I know. I can't. Well, I'm staying here tonight, so I'm really looking forward to like listening because I'm like, my God, you just are the godfather of the activism, cannabis. You're amazing. And if any of us, you know, you planted that seed that you know that you're never going to sit in the shade of, and you passed it on to people like us, and we are following you. And you, well, thank you. No, thank you very much for your service. We need a cannabis life service, like the war, don't we? For the longest time served for the cannabis, and yeah, and definitely you've got mine.
I'll just say something about other things that, because I was clever, I did take the 60s LSD. Once I started having self-hate trips, I said I'd only trip out in the country with nature and not get into people's heads because it's not productive. But I made an early decision and I didn't get into alcohol. Unfortunately, I have a tobacco habit, but I never ever tried what they call hard drugs. I'm into health food, and cannabis was part of brown bread, organic, it's part of the ecology. So it's intertwined in everything we do. And the last thing is just to say, where Callie lives around there, I've been looking at the history in the Waveney Valley, by the way, near Beccles, was for 100 years, cannabis was grown there in dairy farms. And if you didn't grow your cannabis, you were fined a tithe. And they had the Royal Navy stores, and they made all the sailing, the cannabis for the ships to conquer the rest of the world, and all the rope that they used on ships. So if not for cannabis, England would not have its empire.
Which was kind of the point I was just about to make. The way we treat the future of this plant for me is basically going back to its history. I was sat an hour away from a place called West Auckland. At that place, there's a place called the Manor House Hotel. At one time, that was Henry VIII's hunting lodge. I don't know how many of you know your history, but Henry VIII actually gave us the original Brexit in the Reformation. Now, because the Catholic Church wouldn't give him a divorce, he decided that was it. We're moving away from the Catholic Church, which kind of cut off all of our trade routes or trade deals with Europe. Now, to get around that, he mandated that everybody had to be farming hemp. And if you weren't, you could be fined up to 6 months' wages for it. Because we were making literally everything from it, all our sails, our clothes, our robes, everything else. But on top of that, we were also putting it in the cargo holds of every single one of our merchant ships, including the Mayflower. Because the way we used to use this plant was as the foundations of resource-based economies. That's basically what our colonies were. Whereas right now, our economic system is one of debt-based scarcity. So the rarer something is, the harder it is to get a hold of, the more they can charge for it. Now, if you've got £6 million per acre of highly versatile multi-purpose and material resource right on your doorstep, that completely decentralises all of your power away from London and back to your regions. And the cream will rise to the top when it comes to this particular industry. There's plenty of horrible gits and con men that we all know are involved in this, but there's plenty of people who want to see this opened up to everybody. There's too many gatekeepers in all of this when it's very, very easy. Do not consent to this being a Schedule 2 substance. Do not consent to it being a controlled substance, because it's not. Now, if this is a Schedule 2 substance, as there's legislated for, where's the evidence for it? It doesn't exist. and the CPS can't provide it. If this is a controlled substance in the UK, how come any one of us here can make a phone call and get as much as we want? That is a controlled substance. There's rules and regulations in place for its distribution. There's no, the police, they are committing fraud. It's as simple as that. They are performing malicious prosecutions through abusive process, thereby perverting the course of justice. And the only way it ends is by people like us saying, nah, no more, we're not having this. And that's basically going to be the future. The future sat here, either take the rap or don't. It's as simple as that.
So I guess the future that I'd like to see, the future I hear a lot about being discussed around the pharmaceutical circles is cannabinoid-specific disease treatment. So hopefully the pharmaceutical industry type people want to develop some sort of test that we can all take, since every disease is different. You know, it's not just take this oil. So they want to develop a test that'll say, okay, well, I have this disease, I need to take this oil that is, you know, higher in CBG, higher in CBN, THC, whatever. You know, most people only know about THC and CBD, but there's 144 other known cannabinoids which are specific only to the cannabis plant. So I guess the future I'd like to see is one where that's possible, and at the same time that's provided for with the equivalent of health insurance. I'm not sure what it's called here in London, but where you can get it cheaper. You know, you can buy it for $1 a gram or something like this, where it's very affordable. So it's subsidized through the pharmaceutical industry and the government, through the healthcare system, NHS, this type of thing. It's kind of like what I'd like to see. And then at the same time, the other feature I'd like to see is one where at the same time we can all grow it freely. We can grow as many plants as we'd like. We can turn it into a medicine if we'd like. We can smoke it if we'd like. I'd like to be able to consume it in the same places you can smoke tobacco. And that's basically the future I'd like to see.
Do we have any questions from the audience? Well, then that leads us on to our very last point. We have a few minutes here each, guys. Since Lee gave you such a wonderful summation, I suppose, of your activism so far, we're just going to run this panel through till 1:15, guys. So then we're going to go off for 4:20. You know, a lot of fun outside. We've got a lot of prezzies to give out, shall we say that way.
I can really tell Collie's looking forward to it.
Yeah, I do. Callie Blackwell, one of the hardest working women in cannabis in the UK, or at least she's when I make her work all day.
One of the highest women in the UK at the minute.
That is also true. So the last point and thing I'd like each of the panelists to discuss, I suppose myself included, so, although I need to moderate this, I guess. So, sorry, I just got confused in my own brain there, guys. It's been a very long day. Basically, the last thing I want from each of us is to discuss what each of the people watching at home, these wonderful people in the audience and all of those lovely folk enjoying the sunshine outside, what they can do personally now, today, to help end this horrible fascist war against us. Pass that to you, yeah. Well, I will answer that question, Simpa, thank you. So, I think basically Lee Harris was right in the 70s when you put it in Homegrown magazine. Plant the seed, literally just boom, do it. Germination is the crime, that is what you'll get done for. Germination of a seed is illegal, whereas the germination of a seed is illegal if it is done without your intention, with intention. If it is done without your intention, as the Feed the Birds campaign has made very abundantly clear to most people, we can get away with having cannabis grown in places, and then if you happen to walk across and get it, it's only a possession charge at that point. Guerrilla growing is the future in a lot of ways, guys. We have a lot of arable land, and cannabis, it's a very versatile plant, and it will take to any medium. So growing your own is the first major step, I would say. The second is coming out of the grow closet, so to speak, and actually admit to the world that you consume cannabis. Tell your mum, tell your dad, tell your kids, tell your auntie, tell your colleagues if it's not going to jeopardize your career. Be honest about this. The more we hide this, then the more they think it's a couple of us in a dark corner of a park or some wrong-uns in a bush shelter. Easily 5 million people in this country regularly consume cannabis. If we got together and unionized, we would be the single largest voting bloc in this country. We would change this. We would get every farmer's field full of it. And the last point I would like to make, speaking of farmers, is Brexit has meant that we've lost huge amounts of subsidies to these farmers. We need to push them guys into cultivating hemp. Well, cannabis in general.
I suppose, I follow Simpa's, exactly what Simpa said is, we need to just, from grassroots, from grassroots, because you can't fight from the top down, you have to go from the bottom up, and the first stage is just growing it anywhere. And being open about it. If you consume cannabis and it helps you, you have to tell people, because then they know someone that cannabis has helped. And the only way that people understand and learn is that they know someone that cannabis helped, and so they go, oh well, I'll try it, and it's the ripple effect. If you don't tell anybody, like Simpa said, you are reaffirming that stigma, and that's a stigma that we really need to get rid of. So normalising it, taking leaflets and dropping them into doctors' surgeries, into hospitals, things like that. Just talking about it to the granny in the supermarket, say, oh hello, I see you've got a lot of painkillers in there, did you? I've heard on the telly that, that there's loads of ways that you can just plant that seed in the ground and in people's heads. That's the thing as well, planting the seed in their head. Don't give them everything, because then a lot of the time if you give people too much, they don't want to know. You shock them, so you just plant that seed, they go away, they Google, and then they're on their own journey of discovery, and it's that, so plant the seed in the ground and in the mind.
Lovely. And I'm going to continue and plant the seeds, because sometime in the past I went on Hampstead Heath, because there was a white Rasta guy from New Zealand called Nando Tacos, and we had put cannabis seeds in balloons, and about 50 or 70 balloons, and we all stood in a big circle, and I photographed them going, and there were seeds in every balloon. And this guy Nandus, who organised it, he became an MP in New Zealand, the first Green Party MP, and he's just retired to be a Rasta man. So it's inspiring things like that. Free Rob Catlett from Glastonbury did a lot of things, and he went with Howard, and he went and handed in these cookies to the police station. And now we've got, I'm got positive upbeat, because I gave the first policeman in my life, Neil Woods, a hug, because he's joined law enforcement against prohibition. So there's a definite change. I just say the end is that coming here and looking at the stalls, which I've seen, I've done Glastonbury and the fair, and looking at the people, and the lovely sunshine in a beautiful setting, and I thought, deeply moved I was, and I thought, am I dreaming? Have my dreams come true? And I really feel that I felt so emotional, because I think for one element, we will get the medical, but it's come of age, it's been accepted in some way, so I'm a bit positive. And when we struggled, when Mandela had to spend a life imprisonment, and when I was born in South Africa, we used to say freedom in our lifetime, and I waited 38 years for Nelson Mandela to see him on satellite be made president in a democratic South Africa. So time is longer than rope, and we've got to sway history, and just to be a part of this great movement makes life worthwhile. Thank you.
Right, for me, the one thing that everybody can do to move things forward is just simply challenge charges. The only way we do this, that it seems to me, is legally, and if we're in a position where we can push back properly, then I'm going to go off Jeff Ditchfield's advice, which I do quite a bit. Be an expert on every law that you intend to break. It's as simple as that. Because at the end of the day, if you do know the law, it's very, very easy to tie them up in knots. Believe us, I've done it myself. I mean, it was literally just a matter of months ago. So young Simpa, he invited us down to a meeting in Sherburn of cops and community leaders. Now, at that meeting, I got talking to the top cop on site, and we got talking about the Schedule 2 status of cannabis as it is now. And when I pointed out to him, you do realise that's an evidence, don't you? And he kind of cocked his head. If it's on evidence, then surely it's ideological. It's a highly political situation around all of this, isn't it? And hold on, so you realise the Schedule 2 status is ideological and the situation around cannabis is political. Oh yeah, obviously. And right, well, you've just put yourself into a position of misconduct in public office for violations of the Terrorism Act. Have you tried this legally yet? Would I be this cocky if I hadn't? It literally is just knowing the legislation, because it's there for us to use as much as it is them. So be an expert and challenge.
So yeah, I just want to thank Simpa too for putting this all together. This is a great event, and I want to see more events like this. So that's one thing we can all do. And along with growing yourself at home and organizing and joining protests, another thing you can do is elevating patient stories. So I'm sure a lot of you guys have Facebook or Instagram, or even if you do this in person, when you talk about using cannabis, talk about the famous patients, you know, in your area. Callie's a great example with Durham. Mention that so you can help to normalize, and it's an undeniable story that cannabis helps. You know, this is something that's unarguable. So elevate these stories of patients. And the other thing to help, I would say, is to support your local activists at the same time. It takes a lot of time, energy, resources, money, a lot of this to do what we do, because we're trying to do this, you know, to educate you guys and kind of do it as a job. We want to do this full time. We don't want to be doing the other jobs. This is what we feel is our passion in life. So any way you can help us do that would be great. I'm sure there's GoFundMe's, Patreons, t-shirts. I bought one from WTU to support, you know, local activists. So just kind of do what you can when you can, and hopefully we will overcome.
And I think on that note, no, it's not. It's 12 minutes past, guys. Don't prematurely panic. I'm going to let you out of here in 3 minutes.
Just want to say, defiance against unjust laws.
Yes.
Always defiance against unjust laws. It's our obligation to challenge immoral laws.
Conscientious objection to the war on drugs, which is granted to all UK citizens under the Military Act of 1916.
I'll be myself and Trev are working on a challenge card and various other projects over the next coming months to empower and galvanise the average citizen and individual to be capable of defending themselves in law. Anyway though, I'm going to do the final summation and give you my thoughts, if you don't mind, people. This event came about 8-9 weeks ago. I woke up one morning and went, fuck it, we need an event in Durham. I've done many of these before. Mainly in hemp gardens, a colloquial term for a disused bit of land that I commandeered from the council and held for a few hours each weekend for us to have these events. Now we have entered the next echelon and the higher tier of this activism. This event has been amazing. I am just so thankful for you wonderful people for coming and attending. It isn't with your money that you have spent here today that you are going to be able to empower me to open up the Harm Reduction Centre into the Cannabis Club in Durham City. I have recently spoke with our Chief Constable. I'm going to be having a meeting with our Chief Constable and PCVC to try and work out what policy looks like in Durham. So cannabis policy is now being devolved through the MPCC. This is the National Police Chief Council. So they're now saying that individual constabularies can choose their cannabis policy. Durham has been at the forefront of this since 2015, when our still acting Chief Constable Mike Barton decided that we should deprioritise cannabis. We should move towards a checkpoint scheme, which is that if you're caught with an amount of drugs, rather than criminalising you and ruining their lives. And predominantly it is young people that are caught with drugs because they're not smart enough to fucking hide it at the end of the day. That is with low-hanging fruit. And cannabis consumers have always been the low-hanging fruit of drug consumers because our drug stinks. And when it is really good, as it is out there, it smells amazing. All these floral flavours. You've got 200 plus terpenes that mix together synergistically with cannabinoids to produce some unbelievable flavours. I had some blueberry cheesecake the other day, and if I shut my eyes, I was eating blueberry cheesecake. So the future of cannabis is bright. The future of Durham with cannabis is very bright, and the future of these events, we will easily be back this year with more like this. And again, frankly, I just want to thank everybody because this has been a real labour of love. And yeah, we're going to go outside now and enjoy this. So I just want to thank the people at home that have watched the live streams. And once again, I would like to thank you, fine folk, for coming and attending this event. Please support Durham City Cannabis Club. Again, if you can like the page, I know some people can't, but again, I would say end that stigma. Come out about your cannabis consumption. Delete your boss off Facebook or your colleagues that complain about it. Come out to your family and you'll notice that even if you thought, oh, well, my sister's always been anti-drugs, but if you talk to her about it and say why you use it, boom, she'll understand it. You get what I'm saying? Out and proud. We've got to take a lot of movement from LGBTQ, I can't even speak today, community, because it is the more people know about us, the faster we become normalised, and that is the ultimate thing that we need here. Screw the argument of re-legalisation, legalisation, decriminalisation, whatever other policy. We just need to be accepted because we are not bad people. We are criminalised by fraudulent legislation.